Anyway, it is WKRK. The recorder's rolling. 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, worldwide at country.am. And the sheriff is not here today, so me and Mark Thigpen are going to be doing the show. And Mark's been with us several times and always has a lot of great information to pass on. Good morning.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Doing very good. How about yourself on this fine Friday?
It's a wonderful morning. Got out early this morning and thought, man, fall is in the air. It feels good.
It is feeling a little chilly, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was foggy this morning, too. My car's parked under the carport, but when I got in, my windshield was just covered in moisture. I was like, normally it's a pretty dry windshield, but we had quite a bit of fog this morning.
Yeah, it was. I was out this morning about 6:20, and there was a heavy fog just as the sun was starting to come up.
Well, tell us what else is going on in the sheriff's office, and we have a lot of community events we're going to be discussing as well here on today's program.
Yeah, it seems to be quite that time of year. I don't know if it's coupled with the changing of seasons, but we have a lot of community things that are coming up. Some of those things that we have, of course, as we start into the winter season, we're starting to kick up our senior citizen firewood program. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that the inmates who are on work release there at the detention center do. They collect firewood actually all year long, and we have an area there behind the sheriff's office where they split and stack that wood and let it get seasoned and ready, and then we will deliver that. The inmates will deliver it to senior citizens in need. We do sometimes partner with the Department of Social Services for also other families in need. But primarily we take our calls from the public, family members or those that they can no longer get out and collect their own firewood and or they're on a fixed income and wood heat is their method of heating, and so just kind of does a dual purpose. We have a lot of people that have trees go down through the storm season, and they don't have the resources or the capability to clean them up again. A lot of those are elderly citizens in our community. So we'll take a crew out and clean those down trees up, and then turn around, and instead of just wasting that wood, we'll cut it, split it, and use it to give back to the community, the senior citizens that need it.
That's a good program, and I know those who get out and actually get to participate in that, they actually enjoy getting out of the detention center and being a productive person. Very
much so. We have always, of course, a rotation of those people that are coming and going from our inmate work crew, but for them, it very much is a privilege to get out. And, if you ever have the opportunity to stop and talk to some of them or after they've been released, they're always thankful for that opportunity to have been able to do something productive, mm-hmm. and to do something other than just sitting in a confined area during their time of incarceration. And, it's good for them. It's good for the community.
Mm-hmm. And I know just any of us, we just really treasure that feeling of a sense of worth, that I'm worth something, and just be able to do things like that, hopefully even will change someone's life.
Yeah, we've actually been very fortunate there at the detention center with some of the folks that we've been able to utilize in different programs, one being in the kitchen of the detention center. And quite often we see that training that they get from being an aide in the kitchen, that then when they're released takes them back out into a viable worker in the workforce. And, they'll come back and let us know, hey, I got a job at this restaurant or that restaurant, and can directly attribute the skills and the training they got in the detention center. We don't think about it, but in your feeding currently, I think this morning we had 153 inmates that are being fed 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So, we're pumping out meals equivalent of any large restaurant here in the local area. So those folks that do have that opportunity to work in the kitchen do really get to hone their skills in that field of work.
I know last week the sheriff and I were on the radio, and we also did a special Facebook Live feed for the tell people what to expect with the weather for the Hurricane Irma that was approaching, and we encouraged people not to commit any more crimes because the detention center was at capacity.
Yeah, that we are
completely full.
That we are.
So you've welcomed a lot of visitors from other areas that were overcrowded, correct?
We have. One day last week we were at 156 or so, and we have brought in some folks that are having various problems in their facilities, that they needed a place to house some additional people. And we've had some questions that have actually come to the sheriff and to the Mark Patterson, the detention captain, because we do have to occasionally put some people sleeping on the floor. But that detention center was actually built with a capacity that included the square footage within each of the cell pods to put mats on the floor. And in those smaller cells where they actually sleep, there's typically 4 bunks in there, and the state laws and the federal laws that govern capacities allows us to put 2 mats on the floor. And we were I was having a conversation with Captain Patterson this morning, and he'd had a conversation with some other people, and they were like, "Oh, that's horrible, they're sleeping on a concrete floor." And the person he was speaking with said, really that concrete floor is no harder than that steel bunk that mat lays on.
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things, the area that these people that we have opened our doors to, if you will, were really overcrowded. They were putting 6 and 8 people in the same space, or 8 plus on the floors of where we have 4 on bunks and 2 sometimes on the floor. So even though sometimes we have to put them on the floor, they still have more room and a little better facilities than what they came from. And those detention centers actually had met their maximum capacity by the state and federal guidelines, that they could no longer put anyone else anywhere in their facility, and they had to reach out across the state to see who could help them ease their problems. It's not going to be a long-term thing for us, but if it does help those counties as well as those inmates who get a little more room and a little more privacy and a little bit better facilities, then in the long run we've done something positive.
Right. And it's a detention center. It's not intended to be a 5-star hotel.
This is true.
I've slept on the floor many times in my lifetime, and it's really not that bad. It helps my back out sometimes.
Well, and you mentioned the hurricane. We look at the news media and things that are going on around our country right now, and we have folks who are not incarcerated that are sleeping on blankets and even more crowded conditions in some of the Red Cross shelters in Florida and Texas than what our inmates encounter. So we try to make it as best conditions as we can, but sometimes even at the best, it's not the Hilton.
Right. All right. What else we have going on?
We have an event coming up here pretty soon. It's going to be on Saturday, October the 28th. It'll be the 2nd annual Running with the Law, and it's a fundraiser for the Sheriff's Office Women's Association that will start at the Sheriff's Office, and we'll run a course that literally is uphill both ways. I get on to Stephanie Swanson, and I think she had some help when Dustin Smith from the police department laying this course out. But it leaves the sheriff's office, runs down Regal Street to Conahita, down by the Wellness Center, turns up and goes up to the post office, and then back down, comes up between the power board and the police department, and then back down by the courthouse, back up by the post office, back around Conahita to the sheriff's office, and ends back in the parking lot, which is uphill.
Wow, that's going to be a little trek there.
It's literally uphill both ways. It is a 5K. They're asking for registrations to be turned in by October the 2nd, and you can pick those forms up at Of course, the Sheriff's Office, Police Department at the Hiawassee Valley Pool and Wellness Center, Andrews PD, the compound, and the park fitness centers. And then this money that comes in will be used to, of course, with your registration, you'll get T-shirts and then medals to the top 3 finishers in each age group. And then kids who are 10 and under are free. The registration is $25 per person. And then they take that money and use it for a variety of functions throughout the year. Sometimes it's to help community events. Sometimes it's to help with officers that have had some type of tragedy in their life, where maybe they've been out of work or their family member's been out of work and they need a little bit of assistance, whether it's with food or whatever. And that money just is used for those types of things. So it's definitely a good thing. Last year, I can't remember the exact number, but I think for the first one we had somewhere around 50 people that were involved, and it's a walk/run. And then also I should mention that for all current law enforcement officers, you still need to fill out a registration form, but there is no cost for law enforcement to participate in this event. And then they'll have officers from the Sheriff's Office and the Police Department that will be directing traffic at the various points that we have to cross the road, and so it's you don't have to stop and wait to cross the street. We'll have blue lights that light the course, and it was really a neat camaraderie thing last year for both the officers that ran and walked and the community that participated, and we had a lot of fun.
So this is called Running with the Law.
Running with the Law.
Not to be confused with Running from the Law.
That would be correct.
Which, from the sounds of that track, is probably what I'm going to do that day. I'm going to be running from you guys. Unless I can get me one of those segways and just ride along with you. Yeah.
We're open to segways, you know. We had several people last year that brought some of their small children and pushed them in their strollers. And
really? Wow.
You know, overall, after they did the awards presentations, we were there. Some of us slower, older people like myself took a little longer to complete the course, but about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes of, you know, just kind of chilling out. And of course, there was a little bit of competition among some people. You know, a few people that said, you know, I don't care where I finish as long as I finish before so and so.
Just before so and so. Okay.
But had a lot of fun with it, and encourage people to come out and participate with it. Like I say, it's a good benefit. Last year we had several of our local businesses that donated a variety of things that they put into gift bags, hats, and other goodies. And you know, so no matter where you finish, you still walk away with something and had some fun, and know that money will go to benefit positive things within the community.
Very good. It's a lot of people. Some people view law enforcement as bad guys, but there's so much of giving back to the community that a lot of people don't recognize that your department, your office does. But I like the term peace officer. I know we don't use that a lot anymore, but what would you describe as the primary goal of the sheriff's office?
To look out for the people of the community. You know, even when you think about from the aspect of the things where we do have to take enforcement action, that's all for the good of the community. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one thing, is just to make Cherokee County the best possible place to live that we can. We know, you know, we can't make it perfect, but when you're out here and you talk to people that have come from other areas, lived in other areas, and have a lot different crime issues that we have, and they tell you thank you for the difference that your office makes, thank you for the difference that the police departments make. That's what it's all about, is trying to make Cherokee County a place that we can all be proud of, that we feel good about living here, and that we all know that we've got each other's back.
You've been in law enforcement, what was it, like 70, 75 years now?
Well, if you ask some of my grandkids, that would probably be about right.
What are some of the, if you were to look back when you first started in law enforcement and look at the crimes being committed today, what kind of changes have you seen that are probably shocking to some people? I know the technology presents a unique new wave of criminal activity.
Definitely so, and I think when you talk about technology, the fact that technology is used not only to commit the frauds and those types of crimes, but how it's used to harm our children and to harm our elderly. I think that's really appalling. And you know, I look back to when I started. We didn't have a huge number of child abuse cases or elderly abuse cases, and that is definitely two areas that has increased dramatically over the years. Of course, our drug problem is just rampant, but that's not just Cherokee County. That's nationwide.
Back when you first started, it was mainly people moonshining and drinking, but now the drugs have taken over.
You're exactly right. You know, I was talking with someone that started about the same time I did a few days ago, and we were talking about how that you know, if we arrested someone several years back with a large amount of marijuana or got some crack cocaine or cocaine, just a small amount, it was a huge thing because it wasn't here.
Right.
And now if the shift is, if you find someone with just a little bit of marijuana, it's like, okay, we've got a chance maybe to save this one because they've not made that jump into the harder realm of drug use. And it's almost refreshing to catch someone with just some marijuana. You know, not that it doesn't have its own problems and its own implications on their life and our community, but to know that every week our officers are encountering people that are carrying syringes, open syringes. We never got stuck with needles when I started.
Right. And,
you know, now we're reporting workman's comp claims every year for officers who get stuck with a needle, not knowing what disease may or may not be in that needle. We just didn't have those issues, you know, back then. And it's sad and it's scary, you know, for our officers that are on the street just beginning their careers. You know, it's bad enough not knowing what you're going to encounter, but then every time that they do have to pat somebody down or arrest them, that added concern of when I hit your pockets or I'm checking your socks, am I going to get stuck with a needle? You know, that's just, you know, and those are things that if they do get infected with some disease, it may not present itself for years.
right.
And that's sad and scary.
And Derek and I were talking a few months ago about the drug fentanyl, and you can just, and I understand the regular rubber gloves don't protect people from that you have to have the specialized.
Nitrile gloves is correct.
And that's a scary thing because there are some people that kind of have an evil mind. They could sprinkle that stuff on doorknobs and public places, and people can touch it, and it can kill them just by touching it once it's turned into a powder, I understand.
That's correct. As long as it's in a liquid form, it's still dangerous to you if it's absorbed through the skin, but it becomes even more dangerous when it does become powderized, and you can inhale it. Just had a report that came across my desk. We get updates and bulletins from across the country. 3 ER nurses in, I believe it was Ohio this week, were hospitalized and had to be treated with Narcan, which is the typical drug that's used to reverse the effects of a fentanyl overdose, as they were cleaning up after they had treated a patient in the emergency room. Some of the fentanyl, and it actually was heroin-laced fentanyl, became airborne in the room. They inhaled it, didn't know it. The 3 of them, the next thing when they wake up, they're all 3 in hospital beds having been treated for an overdose. week before last, we received a report of some, actually went to the point of death, of some funeral home workers who were preparing a deceased and became overcome with fentanyl,
Wow.
carfentanil residue, and no one was there with them. They went into respiratory arrest and died. So, there's so many reports starting to come out across the country of overdoses by care providers in hospitals and funeral homes, and then of course law enforcement. And we hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll have training in-house. We've been working with the Drug Free Coalition and to receive Narcan for our officers to carry to treat our personnel and our canines should they be overcome with a fentanyl overdose.
And I was reading a news story, which was kind of eye-opening too, that the state of Nevada is actually either they're using or looking at using fentanyl for those on death row, as a lethal injection type thing. But I read a news story on that just a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, we were just talking about that drug, and that's how serious it can be.
Yeah. It's I think the average is equivalent dosage of fentanyl is 1,000 times more powerful than morphine.
Wow.
So it's scary, really is. And we have had probably half a dozen heroin seizures that we've sent to the lab within the last year, and each of those heroin seizures have come back positive, having been mixed with fentanyl. So it's not something that you're watching on the news and going, oh, well, that's in Atlanta or that's in Ohio or California. It's here. We've just been very fortunate that we've not had any innocent bystanders affected with it yet.
All right. Just so I can understand this, because I don't understand what the purpose if someone is wanting to do heroin, why is someone mixing it with the fentanyl? What is the purpose in the mixture?
It's a twofold effect. Number one, fentanyl's a little bit more, not a little bit, much more potent, and can provide a quicker, faster high than the heroin does. And then it's also, for lack of better terms, an economic thing for the dealer. They can get their hands on the fentanyl, mix it with the heroin, and makes their heroin go farther and longer. So it's a twofold purpose. For the dealer, it's to cut their product and to make their pure heroin go farther and longer. But at the same time, where in days past, dealers would mix their heroin with something that was of no value, if you will, for a euphoric effect, by cutting it with fentanyl, not only are they cutting their costs, but they're also providing something that an additional component to it that has an effect of giving some type of drug-induced state along with the heroin.
All right. Well, that clears that up. So I think Derek and I, we talked about that. It's kind of like watering down from the dealers, like if you had alcohol, you mixing a little water in there to make it go further.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's not just with heroin, but we see some crazy things that some of the drugs we take off the streets. Some recently picked up some methamphetamine that was mixed with McDonald's sugar packets. They were actually collecting the McDonald's sugar packets and using that to mix with their methamphetamine. We've recently seen them use the nutrient supplement MSM, which can be boiled down and looks very consistent to the same type of consistency of methamphetamine. They'll mix it in. Of course, when you do those kind of things, the end user's complaining because the product's not as good as it used to be. What have you done to it? But from the economic standpoint, the dealer is making their product go much farther.
So it's a business.
It very much is. Drug flow into our community is strictly a supply and demand, just like any other business. If there's no demand, there'll be no supply. As long as there's demand, there's going to be a supply. And, our job is to interrupt that pipeline of supply.
All right. I know we're running out of time, and we still need to talk about the moving wall.
Real quick, just a reminder that we've got that coming up October 5th through the 9th. It's going to be over at 430 Carriage Lane. It's there off of Pleasant Valley Road, also known as the Band of Brothers Memorial Park. And we've had a couple of calls to the sheriff's office lately inquiring about inmates coming and doing some weed eating and yard work because they've seen them over there getting that site prepared. And we just wanted everybody to know that no, we're not doing free gratis yard work or working for private individuals. When you've seen our inmates over there, they're strictly working to try to get the area prepared for our Veterans Appreciation Day and the moving wall. But we really encourage everyone to come out and see that. I've had the opportunity to actually go to Washington to the actual wall and then to participate when the wall was here last time. And something that everyone needs to take the time out to go and see how many people in just that one era sacrificed for our country, for our freedoms.
I think it's going to be a great thing for school kids, especially so they can have that true appreciation and patriotism growing up.
Especially if they don't have the opportunity to go to Washington to see the actual wall. And it's every much as moving emotionally to see the moving wall as it is to go to the actual wall.
All right. What was the date that it's going to be here?
October 5th through the 9th.
October 5 through 9. All right. Anything you else want to add before we conclude our program today?
I think we're good. We thank the citizens for their help for what we do. We couldn't be effective without the public support.
All right. Thank you so much for all your good work and all the good work from everyone at the Sheriff's Office, and we appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you.
It's WKRK Radio, Murphy, North Carolina, 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable channel 25, and worldwide at country.am.